Shall we play a game?
Why, yes. I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for joining me, whether you're listening in local in the Little Rock, Central Arkansas area on 96.5 FM The Answer, or if you're listening by online stream anywhere in the world at 96.5fmtheanswer.com, then I'm so glad you're here. And if you're listening by podcast or on Krypton Radio, I'm also glad you're here, because this show is both a live talk radio with a heavy geek pop culture emphasis show and also a podcast, because I love both mediums. You can call in during the show if you're listening at Saturday at 1 p.m. Central on what is today, the 13th, right? Yeah, we're delayed on Krypton, but if you're listening at 1 p.m. Central on Saturday 13th, January 13th, you can call 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. Or you can tweet me at Shane Plays, ShanePlays. Today's show, and I'll introduce returning guest and friend of the show here in a moment. Great guys, always a lot of fun. But today's show is going to be geek news of the weird. What do you think about that, Zach? Weird geek news. Come on, does that excite you just a little bit?
I'm excited.
You're excited. All right, I'm going to banter with you here in a little bit so that our news team, Sal's grandmother and her dog Muffin, don't get mad at me. We'll be bantering with Zach here in a moment. So speaking of Shane Plays, you can tweet Shane Plays, or you can go to shaneplays.com. That's the blog that supports the show and my other Shane Plays efforts. And if you're listening by podcast or Krypton Radio, the show notes for today's shows and the news links and all that will be up there. And last week's show, where we talked about The Destroyer, Remo Williams, those series of books, which are now up to 152. The series author, R.J. Carter, joined us, and we talked about the history of The Destroyer, which was originally created by Warren Murphy and David Sapir, and just a lot of fun, just crazy fun action books. So check that out. This show does go out as a podcast, as I mentioned. It goes out on the blog at shaneplays.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, and more. And we're also on YouTube, starting to get more and more listeners on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/GoShanePlays. And then last, but never, ever least, Shane Plays is carried on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is SciFi for your Wi-Fi. KryptonRadio.com. We're played a week delayed on Saturdays and Mondays on Krypton Radio. All right, I have actually two guests to introduce. One of them probably will not say hi, but I'll say hi for her. The lovely Sheila, my wife, is joining me in the studio today. So Sheila, so glad to have you with me. It just makes the show that much better to look over and there you are in your lovely beauty. So, and all your support that you do for the show. She lets me come do the show. That's right. I couldn't do it if she didn't support it. So thank you, Sheila. We're going to go run around a little bit today. She said you're welcome, but the mic wasn't on. So yeah, that's okay. Now she's like frantically waving her hand, like don't turn the mic on. So I asked her, Zach, if she wanted to do the bad joke today, and it was a resounding no. She said no. Zach ate your cookies. Were the cookies good?
They were.
See? Mm-hmm. Yep. Brought you some cookies from the lovely Sheila last week. Well, Sheila, thanks for being with me today as my moral support in the studio. And then on the line, the one, the only, they literally absolutely broke the mold on Neal Hallford, who is a game designer, author, indie filmmaker, and so much more, and just a downright fun guy to talk to. Neal, welcome back to Shane Plays.
Well, thank you for having me. Always wonderful to be on the fantabulous Shane Plays.
Yeah, cool. Well, if it's like the normal Shane Plays, it will simultaneously be fun and just short of a massive train wreck. So we'll see what happens, and if that's not the way it goes today. So, Neal, I did want to say, of course, you do a lot of things. You have the award-winning Case of Evil short film. There's sort of a love letter to the Universal horror movies of the past. You're an author. You're, of course, known for the game designer from Betrayal at Krondor and other things. What's Neal up to right now?
Well, a couple of things. The big thing right now is Uncharted Regions, which is a radio drama series that we started work on late last year.
Yeah.
And we're going to have 13 episodes, but I'm really proud of what we got coming up. We've got, I'm really excited because we've got several different writers in addition to myself, one of whom is the showrunner for the new Marvel Black Panther series.
Quick note, the Black Panther series that Neal is referring to here is the 5th season of the Disney XD Avengers animated show, and the 5th season is going to be Black Panther focused and called Black Panther Quest.
Wow. And
that's excellent.
We're going to be making a big announcement about one of our castings, probably this coming Friday. So I'm really excited about that. But anyway, it's basically Twilight Zone style kind of radio dramas.
Yeah, I love it.
So we're currently working on getting everything lined up so that maybe you can be hearing that on a radio dial near you sometime this summer.
Well, when you get closer to going with that, let me know, and I will try to do a show around that, because I love the Twilight Zone and love supporting my friends. I watched a little bit of Sheila watched it with me, a little bit of the Twilight Zone marathon on New Year's Eve.
Oh yeah, we have to. It's required.
You have to, and then of course people keep telling me I should watch Black Mirror on Netflix.
Should.
So, which is evidently kind of like Twilight Zone, but with a focus on technology, like what technology can do. But anyway, so yeah, that's exciting. Keep us updated on that, and I'll try to work it into my news items and stuff. I also wanted to give a shout out, Neal, to a mutual friend of ours. In fact, you and I met through David Beatty, and Mega Wars has now gone from alpha into beta. It is officially out of alpha. And David, is working round the clock, and his team, including Matthew, and I hope I say this right, Weymouth, and some other folks that he's working with. So, and everything I see about Mega Wars, it's exciting. So, and as a nod to the past, because David not only is a friend, but sponsored the show for quite a while. And we have an ad that you did the vocals on, Neal. So as a blast from the past, we're going to play that to celebrate. And I'm not running an ad, quote unquote. I'm just doing this for fun for David to celebrate that they are in beta. So go to megawars.net or check out Mega Wars on Facebook. It's a 30-day resetting space strategy MMO. And it's got a pedigree of many decades, all the way back to like CompuServe or something like that. So hit us up with that, Zach.
Megawars.net. The classic online space strategy game is returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition, leading to the ultimate battle of the galaxies. Grab your slot today in one of the most hotly anticipated indie games of 2015. Visit megawars.net and get options only available during our pre-sale event running now. Megawars.net.
And let me just say again, that's a nod to the past. Those pre-sales events may or may not be going on now. That's not officially an ad. I just did that one again. Hey, David, good job coming out of alpha, getting into beta. And then two, it was fun because Neal, you did that ad, if I remember correctly. Those are your vocals. So I just thought that would be kind of fun. Megawars.net. So anyway, folks, go to megawars.net or go check out Megawars on Facebook. All right, moving on. I've got to do this real quick, Neal, because the head of our news team, Sal, his grandmother and her dog Muffin get mad at me if I don't banter with my engineer, Zach. So I got to do this quickly. Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, plus Zach's just a darn nice guy, and I always like to say hi to Zach. Zach, what's up, man?
Hello.
So did you hear that about the Black Panther connection to what Neal's doing there?
Well, I mean, I just heard him, but I didn't know about it.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty big. I'm looking forward to Black Panther. Mm-hmm. Dave Ellswick and I next week are doing our annual countdown of our top geek movies of the year show.
Yeah.
And Black Panther is almost certainly going to be in my list.
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to Black Panther. Mm-hmm. So I liked him a lot in Civil War. So, and I like the character and all that. So anyway, I got to ask you, Sheila and I last night watched Dunkirk.
Okay.
You're a big movie buff. Have you seen Dunkirk?
Oh, I loved it. I saw it about 3 times.
Amazing movie. I'm surprised it didn't get more. I mean, it did really well. They said it's the highest grossing World War II movie at the box office ever. Okay. But it didn't get a lot of buzz that I can remember. But that was a fantastic movie.
That was a great movie.
Loved it. All of the stuff because he told it from the land, sea, and air. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and it was all that kind of disjointed time structure. Yeah. Because the planes could only be in the air for an hour. Right. The people at the beach were there for a week, and the civilian rescue boats, was a day. Yeah. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, I had to go 3 times to piece it all together.
Yeah. Now, my hero from that movie was Tom Hardy's character. Okay. With the fighter pilot. Yeah. And then at the end, he's like, I'm not going to ditch this plane. I'm going to land it. I mean, I loved it. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. So, but yeah, Sheila and I enjoyed it. Fantastic movie if people haven't seen it. It just tells the story. It doesn't glorify war. Yeah. It just, this is bad. And if people don't know, before America got involved in World War II, the Nazi forces or the Axis forces or whatever pushed the French, the British, and the Belgians, I think, the Dutch, I'm not sure. They pushed them out of mainland Europe, and their backs were up against the wall in the beaches in France. Yeah. And they needed to be rescued. And they ended up rescuing them. Yeah. And if that hadn't happened, then it probably would have turned the tide of the war, because by rescuing that army, they were the British and everybody else, along with Americans, were able to get back into the war in mainland Europe. So fantastic movie. Right. Neal, have you seen it?
I have not, unfortunately, but it's on my list of things to check out. It's
fantastic. Really, really recommend it. So, and there's some dialogue in it, but not a lot. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is he's just showing kind of what's happening. And one of the guys is by no means a hero. He's just trying to survive. And it's like,
he's terrified.
Never get on a boat with that dude. That's all I'm going to say. All right. We got to move on, because today is Weird Geek News, and I can't think of a better person to have on this show than Neal Hallford. So, Neal, are you ready?
I am ready.
You ready to rip the cord and dig into this weird geek news? Okay. So first of all, our hardworking news team led by Sal put this stuff together. So let's turn on the super secret microphone, Zach, and we'll listen in to the news team there. There they go, working on Saturday. Hard working. Folks, remember, for every $1 of Patreon support the show gets, the news team gets a penny an hour raise. So it's a win-win for everybody. Okay, this first story I have, the first 2 or 3 for our NASA space-related stories. This first one is a weird geek news, but I'm leading with this because it's also a tribute to one of our astronauts that is kind of an unsung hero. John Young, one of the most celebrated astronauts in the history of American spaceflight, passed away on January 6th at the age of 87. Now, this is from the AV Club, the Onion's AV Club. It would be hard to overestimate Young's influence on the NASA program. As the organization's longest-serving active astronaut, he flew on the Gemini missions, piloted the space shuttle, and is one of only 3 people who have ever been to the moon on 2 separate occasions. But despite those accomplishments, he never got as much name recognition as Neil Armstrong or John Glenn or those types. But he does hold one absolutely amazing record that deserves to be memorialized today. All right. So do you know anything about this, Neil, before I read you the headline?
I think I do.
All right. He was the first man to get yelled at for smuggling a sandwich into space.
Well, actually, the only man.
The first and only man. Yeah. So, and again, I don't want to detract from his accomplishments. This man did a lot, but he was the first man to get yelled at by Congress. And I guess only man, maybe a woman did, but this says man, the first man to get yelled at by Congress for smuggling a corned beef sandwich into space. So here are the details as the news team has collected them from the AV Club. Go ahead.
I was going to say, as I understand it too, it wasn't even a terribly good sandwich.
Evidently not. Yeah, there's a transcript of him and Gus Grissom talking, and that I'll get into here in a second. So the inciting incident in question occurred on March 23rd, 1965, while young and fellow astronaut Gus Grissom, who in my opinion, Gus doesn't get his due either. He actually ended up dying in a fire. One of the spacecraft caught on fire on the launch deck or in testing or something like that. The duo were met. What's that?
It was Apollo 1.
Yeah, it was Apollo 1. Yeah, Gus Grissom did a lot, but most people just remember from the right stuff because, he's the one who lost the return capsule. Okay, the duo were meant in part to be testing how astronauts might be able to eat in space. Hence Grissom's slight surprise when his co-pilot suddenly pulled an unauthorized corned beef sandwich out of his pocket. Here's the official NASA transcript, which we can't believe hasn't been made into a movie. Neal, as an indie filmmaker, I call upon you to turn this
illicit sandwiches in space.
This will be the next Apollo 13. You can get Tom Hanks involved and everything. All right. Here's the transcript. Grissom, what is it? Young, corned beef sandwich. Grissom, where did that come from? Young, I brought it with me. Let's see how it tastes. Smells, doesn't it? Grissom, yes, it's breaking up. I'm going to stick it in my pocket. Young, is it? It was a thought anyway. Grissom, yep. Young, not a very good one. Grissom, pretty good though, if it would just hold together. So problem was, of course, the crumbs, we're going to float around in zero G, right? So, yeah, but anyway, Young also served as a commander in the Apollo missions and eventually moved into high administrative posts in the organization. So really, that is kind of a funny, weird news story, but I do want to salute, John Young, for his accomplishments. I was not aware of his accomplishments until that story came out. So John Young, rest in peace, and thanks for what you did. And I love our history of space exploration, and I hope we continue it both as a country and in private enterprise. Okay, you ready for the next one, Neal?
All right, I am ready.
You survived the first Geek News. Okay. Here we go. This is from Gizmodo. Japanese astronaut concerned after growing, you ready for this? 3.5 inches taller in 3 weeks.
Okay.
So
did he do this? Well, I would ask if he was doing it on orbit, but unless he was on a Russian craft, I don't know where that would be happening.
He's on the ISS. So he's on the International Space Station. And it's generally understood that gravity compresses your spine a certain amount.
Right.
So when you go to bed at night, and most of us sleep horizontal. If you're Batman, you sleep upside down, as Michael Keaton showed us. But if you're a normal person, you sleep horizontal, and you actually increase a small amount in height every night, and then you get back up, and then gravity compresses you back down. So when you go into space for an extended period of time, you grow a little bit. It's not unheard of. However, let's see, Norisha Kanai, Japanese astronaut, arrived at the ISS just 3 weeks ago, and he's already grown an astonishing 3.5 inches, which is 9 centimeters. And now he's worried he won't fit into the seat of the return Soyuz vehicle, which, of course, the Russians are taking him and bringing him back. So he said, good morning, he tweeted. Today is a serious report. I had physical measurements since I got to space, heights up to 9 centimeters. I grew like some plant in just 3 weeks. Nothing like this since I was junior high school student. I'm a bit worried if I will fit into the return capsule. So he's supposed to return, he arrived December 17, 2017, and eventually he'll come back down. Now, people says astronauts grow an average of between 2 and 5 centimeters in space, or about 3% taller than their usual height. So, but the thing is, they looked at it and they measured it, and he's fine. The Soyuz return capsule seats or whatever, he's fine even at that height. But there's more. There's a twist, Neal. There's a twist. All right. So it says update. He was wrong. When I first collected this news story, I didn't have the update. I went last night and found the update. So the update from January 10th, Kanai either fabricated the story, mismeasured himself, or it was all a joke that didn't translate well into English. He's only grown 2 centimeters, which is just 3/4 of an inch. He said, this mismeasurement appears to have become a serious topic, so I must apologize for this. Terrible fake news. So there we go. And luckily, the requirements of honor in Japanese culture are not what they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily.
Well, and the thing about it is, I'm sure he disappointed lots of people because people were looking for super growth hormone coming from space.
Right. Yeah, and there's probably there was entire new cults and conspiracy theories popping up around this. So yeah, crazy. Okay, I got one more. I did have a news story that the Star Wars team or the ISS space station crew watched The Last Jedi from orbit, but for time purposes, it's cool and everything, but not exactly weird geek news. So you can go look that up yourself. Go to The Verge. And yeah, they were treated to, they got to watch The Last Jedi from orbit, but they didn't get to eat popcorn. They had to drink out of little, whatever the things are, it's like
space sippy cups.
Yeah, it's like a Capri Sun designed for space, which it's a Capri Sun, but since the government did it, it's like $900 Capri Sun, right? Is that how it works?
Yes.
Okay. All right. This one is cool. This is not exactly a weird geek news story, but it's very cool. And it's kind of weird because everyone associates geeks associate these Voyager missions with of course V'ger, right, coming back and wanting to destroy the Earth. So we're one step closer to that. This is a great story from Ars Technica. After 37 years, Voyager 1 has fired up its trajectory thrusters, and that was early December. Did you hear about this?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, isn't this great? Awesome. Yeah, it's 21 billion kilometers from Earth, or about 141 times the distance between Earth and the Sun. It's moved beyond our solar system and into intergalactic space, but we can still communicate with Voyager. This week, the scientists and engineers on the Voyager team did something very special. They commanded the spacecraft to fight. Remember, this thing's been out there for like 37 years, almost 40 years.
Yeah, they launched in the mid 70s.
Right.
So they've been out there for a while.
Yeah, they commanded the spacecraft to fire a set of 4 trajectory thrusters for the first time in 37 years to determine their ability to orient the spacecraft using 10 millisecond pulses. After sending the commands on Tuesday, remember this is early December, or it was actually late November, I think. It took 19 hours and 35 minutes for the signal to reach Voyager. So at light speed, that's how far out it is.
Right.
Right. Then the Earthbound spacecraft team had to wait another 19 hours and 35 minutes to see if the spacecraft responded. It did, which is so cool. That the geek and the science nerd in me is just super excited. The Aerojet Rocketdyne manufactured thrusters fired perfectly. So that's exciting. That's very exciting. And they say that by using this trajectory correction maneuvers, they'll be able to extend the lifetime of Voyager by 2 or 3 more years before its waning power reserves expire. So that's engineering right there.
Well, I mean, whenever you basically can't send along an engineer to fix it or what have you,
right?
Of course, people bag on NASA and other people for all the redundancies, but there's a reason for that.
There's a reason for that.
And so,
yeah, it's like was that Return of the Living Dead when they go like, these things were built by the U.S. Army Corps Engineers, and he like bangs on the side of that drum or whatever. But this thing was built by the U.S. Army Corps Engineers. So good job, Voyager. Our spirits are with you. So that's from the, I would say, somewhat golden or silver age of NASA exploration, where we were. I don't know. It seemed like we were still doing really big stuff, and I guess we will again one day. But yeah,
New Horizons was pretty ambitious, and I'm pretty pleased with that one. But I mean, it was back in the day. They said let's just throw every instrument on board that we can possibly put up there, rather than we're going to do like one set of packages on this one, and then and some of that's budgetary too. But still, yeah.
Now, was it Voyager that has the
Grand Days?
Oh, go ahead. It was the Grand Days.
That was the Grand Days.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, the Grand Days. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you, buddy. So which Voyager is it that has like the golden disc on it that has the message to the cosmos from Earth? Is that Voyager 1?
They don't both have it?
I'm not sure.
I thought they both did. But I would say for sure it would be the second one. But I thought they both had it. I may be wrong about that.
I'll look it up over the break. And speaking of breaks, I got to get us to a break. When we come back, we've got some Star Trek weird news. So I know that'll excite you. Yeah, we got some Star Trek weird news. And folks, later in the show, before the show ends, we have some UFO weird news. So make sure to stick around for that. Yeah, make sure to stick around for that. But we're going to go to break. When we come back, we'll have more Weird Geek News with Neal Hallford right here on Shane Plays Geek Talk. Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
The die is cast.
Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions. Castles and Crusades is the original easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or Trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/Shane Plays. And we're back on Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm Shane Sachs, your host. Thanks so much for listening, whether you're listening live or if you're listening by podcast or on Krypton Radio. I'm joined by friend of the show and all-around super cool guy, Neal Hallford. And today's show is Weird Geek News. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, been collecting news stories together, and I just thought this would be a heck of a lot of fun, and I can't think of a better person to have along with me with somebody who can be quite weird himself when he wants to be, yeah. Neal Hallford. So it's very, very strange. Now, I've got a couple of Star Trek news items we're going to get into here in a second. But before that, I have a kind of an odd tale of the hazards of gaming. Now, the hazards of gaming, Neal. Now, this is not the news story I'm going to do, but recently, the World Health Organization has actually come out and they are considering making gaming disorder one of their official things they list as an actual disease or problem or whatever. And it's been around for a long time that people are saying, well, games can be addictive or whatever. And what's interesting about this is the World Health Organization is actually considering making it a thing, like in their list of possible disorders, where you game to the point where you can't control your gaming and it affects your life. But that's not the story. The story is, you ready for this one, Neal? Okay. I want you to keep an eye on this story for me. Okay.
I need to keep you on it.
The Telegraph is reporting, and this, I've had this one for a while. This was from back in early October. Chinese
getting news
woman.
Stories off the Telegraph?
Yeah, I got it off the Telegraph. I went, and I went over and ripped it off. I was like, oh man, we got to run this immediately. Stop the presses. Chinese woman blinded in one eye after playing game likened to electronic heroin. Let that headline sink in on you. Yeah. So, and evidently this is true. All right. Evidently. And this is Telegraph. A woman in southern China went blind in one eye after playing a controversial mobile phone game for a whole week. The 21-year-old woman suddenly lost sight in her right eye after playing the game for a whole day over the weekend while at her parents' house in, I'm not going to pronounce it, and I'm not going to pronounce it, province, according to the South China Morning Post. She was diagnosed as having suffered retinal artery occlusion caused by severe eye strain. Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Though whenever Dracula came out, which was the big Japanese RPG back in the day.
Another quick note, the Dracu game that Neal is referring to here is actually Dragon Quest. So Dracu, Dragon Quest.
They actually pulled it from shelves because people were having violent seizures because of the game.
Mm. Well, now was that? Oh, go ahead.
That was, many, many years ago, but that was sort of a notable thing is people were actually having seizures from playing the game.
Hmm. Well, now, was that because of the people can have seizures because of the light flashing? Was it related to that, or? I'm
not really sure exactly what the exact cause, but it was a notable thing. It was something we actually kind of mentioned in Swords and Circuitry was the fact this particular game was apparently so over the top that it was causing seizures in people. Wow,
that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, games, it's, I love the game, but if they're not designed in a way that people have addictive personalities, right? And there's a game science that makes games more addictive. So, they can be a problem. So
it's the same set of stuff that causes gambling addiction. It has to do with reward and basically serotonin uptake and all this other good stuff. But it basically it's the same issue as people who have gambling problems. And so it's the same kind of stuff. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they amended the DSM to basically include to add language about gaming along with sort of more traditional kind of gambling kinds of stuff.
Yeah, there's literally, like you said, there's the risk reward, there's like dopamine, like you get these like little Candy Crush games and stuff you play are specifically designed, there's a science behind it to give you rewards and then stretch the rewards out a little bit more and then stretch them out just a little bit more and then you get addicted to getting that little, and they give you constant little, anyway, there's a whole science behind it. But this game, Arena of Valor, which is also known as Honor of Kings, has become hugely popular in China, is due to be rolled out across US and Europe, including on the Nintendo Switch. But check this out. The eye injury follows a string of incidents. In June, a child in Shenzhen stole 3,450 pounds worth of yuan from his parents to buy add-ons. And a 13-year-old in, I'm not going to pronounce it, in Eastern, I'm not going to pronounce it, province, severely injured his legs after jumping from a 5-story building to escape from his father, who was trying to stop him from playing. In April, a 17-year-old played for 40 hours in a row until he was rushed to casualty after suffering a stroke. Let's see. The addiction has also spread to the Army. The Army's official newspaper has issued 2 warnings saying that his soldiers are so engrossed in the game that it is affecting their battle readiness. Wow. So, and now, hey, it's coming here. So, yeah, the game is called, again, Arena of Valor, also known as Honor of Kings. Of course, Neal, this always puts me in mind these kinds of stories of the Star Trek Next Generation episode where Riker brought that game on. Yeah, and everybody got addicted, and Data had to save the day.
The lamest game ever,
Yeah, but it gave you like a little like pleasure rush or something. Yeah, so, okay, moving right along. Got a couple of starts. Did you see how I kind of segued? I'm going to lift the veil. I segued a little bit into Star Trek. Did you see how I did that, Neal? Yeah. Yep. Right into it. Okay. Zach, did you like that segue?
Yeah, I did.
Wasn't bad, right? Okay. Sheila, did you like that segue? She was looking at her phone. So.
So obviously she was deeply enthralled.
Yeah. She's playing Honor of Kings or whatever on her phone. Don't do it, Sheila. Right. Your eye will explode. Your eye's going to explode, Sheila, and don't steal $3,000 worth of money from me to buy add-ons. All right. You already did?
If she goes blind in one eye, she becomes an oracle, right?
She does become an oracle.
Tell the future.
My wife is an oracle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go. This is from CTV News, which is in Canada. Assimilate license plate fight may be headed to court. Now, I saw this news story a while back when it first happened, but now it looks like that people have lawyered up on both sides. Okay, anybody who knows Star Trek, or really, this is kind of the Borg, I would argue, are in pop culture collectively, right? We are the Borg. Yes. You know, resistance is futile.
We are the children, yes.
Right. Resistance is futile. We are the Borg, right? It's basically a worldwide known catchphrase in pop culture.
Yes.
All right. But a Canadian nonprofit legal organization is intervening on behalf of a Star Trek fan fighting to use a personalized license plate deemed offensive by Manitoba's public insurance company. Nick Troller's license plate with the text assimilate, which was ASIMIL, the numeral 8, was confiscated by Manitoba Public Insurance in April after the Crown Corporation received compliments from 2 Indigenous people about its reference to the word assimilate. Troller was told to surrender his plate and they could either buy a new personalized plate or receive a refund for the old one. According to policy, plates can't contain the words, phrases, or innuendos that may be considered offensive. License plates are the property of the Crown, and there is not an appeal process. So, Troller defends his customs plate as a simple reference to the Borg, Star Trek villains with the threatening catchphrase, "You will be assimilated," that he says is made obvious by his license plate holder. The license plate holder surrounding the word assimilate does say, "We are the Borg, resistance is futile." So now we all know that common sense isn't always the same as the law or political correctness. Okay. I can kind of see both sides here. I do think that assimilate and we are the Borg and all that is enough in pop culture that it can be argued. I'm not trying to tell Indigenous people they have to assimilate into Canadian culture. And where I'm like, this is why I really don't like these kinds of laws, because it says phrases or innuendos that may be considered offensive. So there's no objective metric here. You know, if somebody can claim to be offensive and then your rights or whatever are impaired. So, but anyway, what's your take on this?
Well, I mean, it's like the old obscenity laws,
right?
You know, the obscenity law used to be as if it gets a rise out of the town drunk. That was the measure of whether something was considered obscene. And unfortunately, in this case, it's even more vague than that. I really think that you've got a law that just doesn't make a lot of sense. But as you said, it's like someone being offended or freaked out about, beam me up Scotty or something. I mean, this is so hugely in a popular culture.
Right.
I think most people know what it is. And so if 2 or 3 people find something offensive, I think it's kind of ridiculous. But that's my own.
Well, what it comes down to me, and I'm not the judge. I don't know. I'm not intricately familiar with the laws involved. But the fact that his license plate holder, goes on to further strengthen what he's trying to do.
Actually given context.
Right, exactly. If it just said assimilate and that was it, and there was, and assimilate was a hot button word in Canadian society, I kind of see that. But anyway, but there may be somebody genuinely offended by this, but there's no safety belts in life. There's no guarantee that you will never, ever, ever get offended by what you bring into something in life. Having said that, all I know about this is what the news article says. That, I could go research further and find out the guy's a big jerk and he really means it like assimilate, and he just put the Star Trek stuff around it to protect it. You never know. So, but on the face of it, I'm like, I just hurt my eyes by rolling them so hard. That's kind of what that does to me. All right.
Are you sure it was because of that and not playing that game?
Both. I'm playing it right now. It's so addictive. I looked it up while we were talking about it, and I immediately, so I'm playing it while we're, and Sheila and I are playing it. We're going crazy.
That's perfect.
So, speaking of over the break, well, not speaking of, but over the break, I did look up, and yes, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 both had the golden discs on them that had the message.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Telling people exactly where we're located to come get us.
And sending Chuck Berry to the universe.
Yeah, sending Chuck Berry to the universe. Yeah. I love Enterprise, the first season of Enterprise, when Archer's out there, and every ship that goes by, he hails them and he goes, "Hey, we're from Earth." And they're like, "Yeah, great, whatever." Or they suddenly get shot at. So, yeah, the great thing. Just send that out there with the directions right to Earth. You just do that. So, okay. Neal, I'm going to guess that you know this next news story, but just in case you don't, I'm going to throw it out there anyway for my listeners. Okay, this is an article from MeTV, which is, of course, a retro TV station. Here's what Spock was originally going to look like on Star Trek. And the subheading is, "Can you picture Spock as a red devil? We did." Now, tell us, Neal, from your vast Star Trek knowledge, what do you know of what Spock was originally supposed to be like?
Again, he was described as being fairly demonic looking.
Gene Roddenberry even said satanic, I think.
Yeah. And of course, I've always kind of wondered if that was inspired by A Childhood's End, which, of course, the overlords were described as looking exactly the way demons are supposed to look. But anyway, but yeah, he was described as looking kind of as devilish or satanic or what have you, and so that just wasn't going to fly with the executives,
right?
And so ultimately, it got toned down to Spock just having the pointed ears,
right,
and everything. But yeah, he was that was originally that was quite a huge point of contention between Gene Roddenberry and the rest of the and the executives at Paramount.
Well, if I remember right,
or NBC, I should say.
At NBC, yeah, Desi Liu and all. Well, I think Desi Liu was behind him. I think it was NBC that he was, because a lot of people don't know Lucille Ball is basically responsible for Star Trek being on the air because she went to bat.
Godmother of Star Trek.
Yeah,
there would have been no Star Trek if Lucille Ball had not gone to bat and basically ensured the Star Trek had a slot on the air. We always must be grateful to Lucille Ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if I remember, what I've read is that Roddenberry wanted Spock to appear devilish, but also end up having the most kind, friendly personality on the show, because he was, he's mucking around with punching holes in stereotypes, and that's why he wanted a multicultural, ethnic bridge crew and all that stuff. But here was the original design. In the beginning, Mr. Spock, as we know him, now didn't exist, explains Samuel A. Peoples, writer of the episode Where No Man Has Gone Before. And this is from the book 50-Year Mission, The Complete Uncensored Unauthorized Oral History of Star Trek, The First 25 Years. Maybe we can tack something else onto that title. All right. You ready for this? You ready for this, Neal? He was a red-tailed devil who didn't eat. Mm-hmm. He absorbed energy through a red plate in his stomach. Additionally, the Devil Spock was designed to have a heavy brow and speak with a British accent. So at one point, Roddenberry flirted with the idea of casting a little person in the role, also known as a midget, to make him stand out. The devil idea was eventually ditched as the network feared the look would not go over well with religious viewers. So there you go. And if people want to go to metv.com and look this up, or it'll be on the show notes, the link. And they actually drew up an image of what Spock would look like that way. So I'm about to take us to break. And then when we come back, we're going to have a couple of UFO stories, Neal. But real quick, in 30 seconds or less, what's the current, speaking of Star Trek, what's the status on the Con of Wrath?
The Con of Wrath is in post-production. We do have a couple other interviews that we want to get done yet, but at this point we are working on post-production, and there's some other kind of cool things that may be coming down the pike, which I can't talk about yet. All
right. So the Con of Wrath, that people don't know, was an 80s con in Texas. Was it Dallas, Austin, somewhere around in there? What city was it, Neal?
It was in Houston. And the actual name of the event was the Ultimate Fantasy, but it became to be known as the Con of Wrath.
It's the Con of Wrath, which had not only a magnesium planet explosion, unintended, but I think DeForest Kelley or somebody walked up at one point and sort of frantically grabbed one of the organizers' arms and said, get us out of here or something like that. So
it's Harv Bennett, the executive producer of The Wrath of Khan.
Get us out of here. It's a fascinating story. I'm really looking forward to that coming out. You and it's on the tip of my tongue. Who's your partner?
Larry
Nemechek. You guys
Larry, who is the real. This is kind of his party, and I'm helping out on it. But yeah.
Well, Neal and I, we've talked about doing. You and I have talked about doing a podcast called Magnesium Planet Explosion in its honor, and so I guess you could see this is a pilot episode of Magnesium Planet Explosion. So, which I just love so much. It just makes me so happy. Okay, all right. I'm going to take us to a break. When we come back, we'll have more with Neal and Weird Geek News, including UFO Geek News. But I got to throw out some love to a sponsor, which is the opposite of throwing shade. Some goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. They're conveniently located at 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, and staffed by friendly employees. There's like events every day of the week there, so go check them out. For all your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. First-time customers mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Tell them Shane Plays sent you. Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm joined by a friend of the show and all-around interesting, fascinating, and cool guy, Neal Hallford, who is an author. He's working on a radio anthology series that's kind of like the Twilight Zone. He's of course was known for Betrayal at Krondor. He's an indie filmmaker. So go check out Neal Hallford. He's got a book out there. Was it Swords and Circuitry, Neal, where you talk about game design and that sort of thing. So check his stuff out. But he's helping me today. We're going through Weird Geek News. So I'd love to have your comments on what you think of this format of show. I've been wanting to do it for a while. Just tweet me at Shane Plays or drop me a line at shane@shaneplays.com or drop me a line at Shane Plays Facebook or something like that. So digging back into the Weird Geek News, Neal.
Yeah.
This is the kind of headline that makes you happy to be alive.
Okay.
All right. This is from The Verge. Guillermo del Toro says he saw a real UFO and it was, quote, you ready for this? Horribly designed. All right.
All right. Well.
Yeah, and the
I feel those ETs feel properly chastened now.
Yeah. It says Guillermo del Toro says he saw a real UFO and it was horribly designed. This was from December 23rd on The Verge, and the author or the article author was Laura Hudson. The Shape of Water director Guillermo del Toro recently spoke to The Hollywood Reporter about some of the strangest and most supernatural experiences in his life. In addition to 2 encounters with ghosts, he describes how he had a very vivid encounter with a UFO as a young man, and it looked like crap. You sound like a complete lunatic, but I saw a UFO. I didn't want to see a UFO, says Del Toro. It was horribly designed. He describes buying a 6-pack, which he insists he didn't drink, with a friend, and the pair drove out to get a look at the stars on the side of an isolated freeway near Guadalajara. As they sat in the darkness, they saw a light on the horizon moving super fast. After they honked at it and flashed their lights, that's what you do to a UFO, right? You honk your light.
Right.
You honk.
Exactly.
Yeah. It went from 1,000 meters way away to much closer in less than a second. Although Del Toro described it as the scariest moment of his life, he couldn't help but note how visually unimpressive and hackneyed the spacecraft was, even as he and his friend were fleeing for their lives. So he said it was so crappy, the Oscar-nominated director continued to say about his harrowing experience with a janky UFO. It was a flying saucer, so cliche with lights blinking. It's so sad. I wish I could reveal they're not what you think they are. They are what you think they are. So yeah, and I don't even want to go into his 2 experiences with a ghost. So I guess he's just a weirdness magnet. So
I guess so.
Yeah. So here's what I want to point out in here. One, yeah, I mean, if you see a UFO, I think that it should be amazingly magnificent and cool in its own right. But 2, why does people think if you're drunk, you hallucinate stuff? Right? Did you see a UFO? Yeah. Were you drinking? Well, I have never in my life, now I haven't drank in over a decade.
Pink elephants.
Yeah. But I used to drink a little, and I have never, no matter how drunk I was, hallucinated something. So I think that is so dumb when people go, well, he was drinking. Nobody hallucinate unless you're like an alcoholic and you're trying not to drink and you're having like withdrawals and DTs or something. You don't hallucinate from drinking alcohol. So anyway, that's my big takeaway from a UFO story that Guillermo del Toro says look like poop. So, all right. I've just got 2 or 3 minutes here to do, and this is a big story. We're ending on somewhat of a serious note UFO wise. So I'm going to recommend that people go research this article themselves because I can't get into the meat of it with the time we have left. But the Huffington Post, and this has been reported in other areas too, former manager of DoD Aerospace Threat Program, UFOs are real. He basically came out a couple of months ago, right after he resigned his position. And he never used the word UFO, but he used all the government terminology for it. But he was at the launch to the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences, and he was, making a speech or whatever, or giving interviews or something. But he was on a team that had a 25-year veteran of CIA's Directorate of Operations, a Lockheed Martin Program Director for Advanced Systems at Skunk Works, and a former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defensive Intelligence. And he basically said, there's technologies out there. We have evidence of technologies out there beyond our wildest dreams that will eventually make it into our stuff. And there wasn't necessarily anything overtly hostile. Now, take that as you will. There's a lot of people that are really heavy into this UFO stuff. And, I think there's evidence of something crazy going on. I don't know exactly what it is. But if you go research this article, former manager of DoD Aerospace Threat Program, UFOs are real. He basically says in that very obtuse governmental type language, that, yeah, they're real. I mean, there's so much evidence that, and then he also said they did not exhibit overt hostility. This was the person being interviewed in the article. But something unexplained is always assumed to be a potential threat until certain it isn't. On the bright side, I believe we're closer than ever before in understanding how it operates, et cetera, et cetera. So, and that's a guy, he resigned this job. And like 2 days later, he'd been in this job forever. And 2 days later, he started giving these kind of quotes. And I've seen more than one of these kind of articles popping up recently. So I think it's interesting. I'm not saying UFOs are real or not, but I think it's interesting. I've got about a minute. You got anything you want to add to that there, Mr. Neal?
Well, one of the big stories was that when they were talking about that was actually apparently an event that took place right off the shore out here in San Diego.
Yeah.
And
which is where you live, right?
So it's fascinating and it's interesting and everything else. Like I said, I'm not entirely sure what to make out of all of that, because we know that there was a lot of stuff that happened back in the 50s and 60s during the Cold War, where it was actually in the government's interest to let UFO stories propagate. Because whenever they were trying to basically hide secret weapons programs and things along those lines. So if it comes out of a governmental thing, particularly if it comes out of the CIA, I have a kind of is this story out here because it serves basically we want high development on the Aurora or whatever. So I'm not entirely sure what to make out of that. But
well, that's the thing with UFOs. You can never nail it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with Fox. I want to believe, but I'm not entirely sure that I do.
Okay. How many? What have I got left here, Zach? I got 15 seconds. I'm going to do the bad joke of the week, Neal. And
you go for it.
And it's a weird one in the spirit of Weird Geek News. What's green and has 4 legs and can kill you if it drops on you out of a tree?
I have no idea.
A pool table. Okay, that was a weird one. I got to go, man. I got to wrap us. Neal, thanks for being on. We'll catch everybody next week.
The following audio is from a YouTube video CNN posted on December 19th, 2017, entitled Ex-UFO Program Chief, We May Not Be Alone. Search for it on YouTube, or you can find it in the show notes on shaneplays.com.
Out front now, the former Pentagon military official who ran the covert government program up until this last November, Luis Elizondo. Luis, thank you so much for your time tonight. I mean, first, tell us what the purpose of the program was and why it was so secretive.
Sure. The purpose of the program, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was really designed to do just that. From a national security perspective, identify those things that we see, whether we see them electro-optically, we see them with radar, we see them as eyewitness reports, through a myriad of different ways and avenues that we receive the information, and try to ascertain and determine if that information is a potential threat to national security, in a nutshell.
So what did you find?
Well, we found a lot. I think it's probably been a little bit mischaracterized in some of the social media you see and what people put out, because a lot of times when we don't have a lot of information, we tend to fill in those gaps with what we think is logical. And there's still, by the way, a lot we really don't know. I think what's important is that we have identified some very, very interesting, anomalous type of aircraft. Let's call them aircraft. Things that don't have any obvious flight surfaces, any obvious forms of propulsion, and maneuvering in ways that include extreme maneuverability beyond, I would submit, the healthy G-forces of a human or anything biological, hypersonic velocities, low observability, positive lift, again, seemingly in defying the laws of aerodynamics. So people are talking.
Think, I mean, I know, but do you believe, when you get that Navy pilot saying what he said, do you think that was, a UFO? To obviously, I don't have any other word to use, or that, or something else? Sure,
that's a great question. Keeping in mind, it's not just the pilot's testimony on an observation. Sure, when someone comes to you who's in charge of a multi-million-dollar weapon platform, who maintains a top-secret security clearance, who is paid and trusted by this country to go fight wars and to fly over cities with live munitions, and by the way, they're trained observers with millions of dollars invested in their training. Yep. I would submit to you it's pretty compelling. But on top of that, it's not just the eyewitness testimony. It is actual electro-optical data and radar returns. It's also people like radar operators and air traffic controllers. So I think the discussion should be maybe a little bit broader than that. I think people are focusing just on 2 videos coming from a set of F-18s when really it's a lot more than that.
Look, and I know you think it's important. I know you think that the government didn't take the threat seriously enough. So let me just ask you point blank the question. Do you believe that life from somewhere else, while you ran this program, came here, visited, observed?
I will tell you unequivocally that through the observation, scientific methodologies that were applied to look at this phenomena, that these aircraft, we'll call them aircraft, are displaying characteristics that are not currently within the U.S. inventory, nor in any foreign inventory that we are aware of.
So I know you're being clear, but I mean, the answer is yes.
I can't speak on behalf of the government. Obviously, I'm not in the U.S. government anymore. My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone, whatever that means.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.